The federal courthouse in Washington, D.C. had seen many cases before, but nothing like this. Reporters filled every corner of the courtroom. Cameras clicked. Outside, the air buzzed with tension. Standing on the courthouse steps was Congressman Matt Gaetz, the Florida politician known for his loud opinions and his famous laugh. That same laugh he used to mock others, to brush off trouble, to show the world he was untouchable. Today, that laugh would fail him. Inside, the judge called the court to order. "Your Honor," said the attorney for Representative Jasmine Crockett, "we present Exhibit A through Exhibit Z, 26 pieces of evidence proving Congressman Gaetz knowingly defamed my client with malicious intent." The crowd went silent. The judge looked down at the mountain of evidence, then back at Gaetz. "I've seen many cases in 30 years, the judge said slowly, but never evidence this strong." Gaetz's usual grin began to fade. For the first time, the man who mocked others looked scared. Within hours, the story exploded across every network. The man who laughed at others was now the one being laughed at. But how did it come to this? To understand, we need to go back 3 months earlier. Matt Gaetz had built his career on being loud, bold, and unfiltered. At 42, he was one of the most talked-about members of Congress. He didn't fear scandals. He chased them. His father was a wealthy Florida politician. Gaetz had grown up with money, power, and confidence. He believed rules didn't apply to him. Whenever anyone challenged him, he laughed. That smirk, that chuckle, it said, "You can't touch me. You're beneath me." On social media, he was ruthless. He fired off insults like weapons, especially at women, especially women of color. His followers loved it. But one woman refused to stay silent. Jasmine Crockett wasn't the type to back down. She was 43, from Texas, smart, calm, confident, and proud of who she was. Before politics, she had been a civil rights attorney. She had spent years standing up to powerful people who thought they were above the law. She knew how to fight. She knew how to build a case. And she knew how to wait for the right moment. Gaetz had no idea who he was dealing with. It started small. During a House Oversight Committee meeting, Crockett questioned a witness about government waste in Florida. It wasn't even about Gaetz, but he took it personally. During a break, a hot mic caught his voice. "That woman doesn't know what she's talking about." Typical diversity hire trying to act important. The comment spread quickly online, but instead of apologizing, Gaetz doubled down. That night on a podcast, he said with a laugh, "Jasmine Crockett is what happens when you prioritize checking boxes over competence. She's in Congress because of her race and gender, not her abilities." The host tried to change the subject, but Gaetz kept going. "Look at her background," he said. "A public defender helping criminals avoid justice. Now she wants to lecture us about law and order? Please," he laughed again. That same laugh that had made him famous. But this time, it would destroy him. Over the next 2 weeks, Gaetz went on the offensive. He posted memes mocking Crockett's looks. He called her unqualified in interviews. He even hinted that she had only passed the bar exam because of lowered standards. Each insult was worse than the last. Each one ended with that arrogant chuckle. Crockett stayed calm. Her response was simple and strong. "Congressman Gaetz's comments say more about him than they do about me. I'm here to serve my people, not engage in petty insults." But Gaetz took her restraint as weakness. He went on television again and said, "She won't debate me because she knows she's out of her depth. She's a perfect example of what's wrong with affirmative action." That was the moment she decided enough was enough. Crockett picked up her phone and called her old law partners. It was time to fight back, legally. Behind the scenes, her team gathered everything. Every tweet. Every podcast. Every cruel laugh. Her chief of staff, a former prosecutor, created a massive file. Each page was evidence. Each word was proof. For 6 weeks, they built their case. And when it was ready, they dropped it like a bomb. On a Tuesday morning, headlines screamed the news. Representative Jasmine Crockett had filed a defamation lawsuit against Congressman Matt Gaetz for $20 million. The 127-page document didn't just accuse him. It proved every detail. He called her a diversity hire? The lawsuit showed her honors degree from Howard University, her top score on the Texas bar exam, her long list of courtroom victories. He called her unqualified. It listed her record of winning major cases. But the most damaging part came from Gaetz himself. Screenshots of his tweets, transcripts of his interviews, even private messages where he bragged about putting her in her place. Gaetz was live on television when the news broke. The host interrupted him. "Congressman, we're getting reports that Representative Crockett has filed a major lawsuit against you. Care to comment?" For once, Gaetz didn't know what to say. His smile vanished. I haven't seen any lawsuit," he stammered. "This is obviously political," the host read from her phone. "The lawsuit alleges defamation with malicious intent and seeks $20 million in damages." Gaetz tried to laugh, but it came out weak. "This is ridiculous. Everything I said was protected political speech." Even he didn't sound convinced. Within hours, every network was running the story. Legal experts studied the case. "This isn't just a lawsuit," one said. "It's a masterclass. She has evidence, witnesses, and intent." For the first time, the internet wasn't laughing with Matt Gaetz. They were laughing at him. The next morning, Gaetz held a press conference. He forced a grin. "This lawsuit is a joke," he said. "Crockett can't handle criticism. This is what the radical left does, but reporters weren't fooled." "Congressman," one asked, "the lawsuit includes a text where you said, 'I'm going to destroy that woman's reputation.' Did you write that?" Gaetz blinked. "I don't recall any such text. It's from your phone number," the reporter said. "Are you saying it's fake?" His smile disappeared. The cameras caught every second. By the end, he was sweating and stumbling over his words. Meanwhile, Crockett held her own press conference. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't gloat. "For months," she said, "Congressman Gaetz has tried to tear me down, not for my policies, but for who I am. This isn't politics. This is harassment. And it ends now." Her calm confidence stole the spotlight. America had found a new hero. Gaetz's lawyers tried to get the case dismissed. They said his words were free speech, but the judge wasn't impressed. "Your client didn't just share opinions," he said. "He made false claims, statements proven wrong." Then came the bombshell. Crockett's lawyer played an audio recording. Gaetz's voice filled the courtroom. "Crockett thinks she's smart because she's got degrees, but we all know those don't mean much when they're handed out to meet quotas. I'll keep hitting her until she quits or breaks down." Then came that laugh. That cruel, mocking laugh. The courtroom was silent. The judge looked directly at Gaetz. "Is that your voice, Congressman?" Gaetz swallowed hard. "It sounds like me, but no buts," the judge said. "This case will proceed to trial." As Gaetz walked out of court, cameras flashed. The same grin he once used to mock others was gone. His laugh, silent. Reporters shouted questions, but he kept walking, head down. And yet, this was only the beginning, because what would happen next would not only end his career, it would change the rules of American politics forever. The courtroom battle had only begun. Reporters called it the trial of the decade. Every day, crowds gathered outside the courthouse. News vans lined the streets. Inside, cameras rolled. Matt Gaetz walked in trying to look confident. But his eyes told another story. The famous grin was gone. His skin looked pale under the bright lights. Each click of a camera made him flinch. Behind him, his legal team whispered nervously. Shuffling papers they already knew wouldn't save him. Jasmine Crockett arrived a few minutes later. Calm, focused, dressed in a sharp navy suit. She nodded politely to the reporters, then walked straight inside without saying a word. Her confidence spoke louder than anything she could have said. The opening statements began. Crockett's attorney stood, voice firm but measured. "Your Honor, members of the jury, this case is about power. It's about a powerful man who used his position to spread lies about a colleague. Not because of what she did, but because of who she is." He thought he could laugh it off. He thought he was untouchable. But today, the truth will speak louder than his laughter. Every word landed heavy in the courtroom. Gaetz shifted uncomfortably in his chair. His attorney rose next. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is politics," he said quickly. Tough words. Strong opinions. My client was exercising free speech. This lawsuit isn't about defamation. It's about silencing a conservative voice. But even as he spoke, the jury's faces stayed cold. They had already heard the recording. They had already seen the texts. The defense's words sounded thin. The first witness was called. It was a former staffer of Gaetz, Jennifer Martinez. She walked to the stand, hand trembling slightly as she took the oath. "Ms. Martinez," the attorney asked, "did Congressman Gaetz ever discuss Representative Crockett with you?" She nodded. "Yes, many times. What did he say?" Martinez looked directly at Gaetz. "He said he wanted to take her down a peg. He told us to dig up dirt on her, and when we couldn't find anything, he said, 'Then we'll make something up.'" The room went silent. Did he explain why? "Yes," she replied. "He said people like her don't belong in Congress, that the base would love it if he embarrassed her publicly." The jury's eyes turned toward Gaetz. His face flushed. He looked away. Crockett's attorney thanked the witness and showed an email on the screen. It was from Gaetz's official account. It read, "Find out where she went to law school. I bet it's some diversity program. Let's show people how fake this all is." Gasps echoed through the room. Gaetz's attorney jumped up. "Objection. That email lacks context." The judge frowned. Overruled. The context is quite clear. For the next 2 days, witness after witness described the same pattern. Gaetz mocking, laughing, and attacking women who challenged him. A former communications director said, "It was like a game to him." He'd say, "Let's see how far I can push before they break." Crockett sat quietly through it all. No emotion, no outbursts, only focus. When the time came for Gaetz to take the stand, the courtroom was packed. Every seat taken. Reporters shoulder to shoulder. He raised his hand and swore to tell the truth. His lawyer began gently. "Congressman, you've been accused of defaming Representative Crockett. Did you ever intend to harm her?" "Of course not," Gaetz said. "I was just engaging in political debate." "That's what politics is, debate." His voice shook slightly. The cross-examination began. Crockett's attorney stood, papers in hand. "Congressman Gaetz," he said, "you claimed Representative Crockett only passed the bar exam because of lowered standards. What proof did you have?" Gaetz hesitated. "It was an opinion." "An opinion based on what?" "I heard things." "Heard things? From whom?" Gaetz paused again. "It was just common knowledge." The attorney leaned forward. "Common knowledge? You're under oath. Name one source." Gaetz swallowed. "I can't recall." "Let me help your memory," the attorney said. "Isn't it true you never researched her background? That you never verified anything before making those statements?" Gaetz tried to laugh, but the sound died in his throat. "Look, it was political talk. So you admit it wasn't true?" "I didn't say that." "But you can't prove it was true?" Silence. The jury stared at him. He shifted in his seat. The attorney showed a clip on the screen. Gaetz on television, laughing as he mocked Crockett's intelligence. Then another clip. Another laugh. Another lie. 17 videos in total, one after another. When the lights came back on, the attorney asked softly, "Do you find destroying someone's reputation funny, Congressman?" No answer. "Do you find laughing while lying about a colleague funny?" Gaetz stared at the table. The courtroom was completely silent. After a long pause, the judge spoke. "You may answer the question, Congressman." Gaetz looked up. His voice was low. "No, Your Honor." Crockett's attorney nodded. No further questions. Outside the courthouse, the reaction was explosive. Cable news called it a total collapse on the stand. Late-night shows replayed the clips of Gaetz's nervous stammering. Memes flooded the internet. The man who once controlled the conversation had lost control completely. Back in court, it was Jasmine Crockett's turn to testify. She walked to the stand with quiet grace. Her lawyer asked, "Representative Crockett, How have these attacks affected you? She took a breath. They changed my life. I received hundreds of hateful messages. People called my office with threats. Some said I didn't deserve to live. My family was scared. I had to hire security. Her voice wavered slightly, but she stayed strong. Every day I walked into work wondering if someone would confront me, all because a congressman thought it was funny to lie about me. The courtroom listened in silence. Did you ever try to respond publicly? Yes, once. I said his words said more about him than about me. But he didn't stop. He laughed harder. He went on more shows. Why did you decide to file this lawsuit? Because nobody should have to go through what I did. If people in power can spread lies without consequences, then truth doesn't matter anymore. Her words hit deep. Even reporters looked emotional. When cross-examined, she never raised her voice. The defense tried to paint her as overly sensitive. She calmly said, I've faced tougher men than Congressman Gaetz, but I've never faced someone so proud of being cruel. That line made the front page of every paper the next morning. The final week of the trial was brutal. The defense tried every trick, claiming political bias, accusing Crockett of grandstanding, even suggesting her lawsuit was for publicity. But each claim collapsed under the mountain of evidence. Then came closing arguments. Crockett's lawyer stood before the jury. This case is simple, he said. Matt Gaetz thought he could use lies and laughter as weapons. He thought he was safe because of his title. But today you can show him, and everyone like him, that power doesn't excuse cruelty. He walked slowly across the courtroom. You heard his own words. You saw his messages. He laughed while he lied. But truth still matters. And today truth has a voice. Gaetz's attorney spoke next. His tone was desperate. If we punish every harsh word in politics, we destroy free speech. This is America. We debate, we argue, we challenge each other. But the jury looked unmoved. They had already decided who was telling the truth. The judge gave final instructions and dismissed them to deliberate. Outside, crowds gathered again. The tension was thick. Reporters speculated endlessly. Some said it would take days. Some thought the jury might be split, but inside the jury room, it was different. They didn't need days. 3 hours later, word spread through the courthouse. The jury had reached a verdict. People rushed back into the courtroom. Reporters, lawyers, staff, all holding their breath. Gaetz sat still, face pale. Crockett sat calm, hands folded. The clerk stood and read the paper in her hands. We, the jury, find in favor of the plaintiff, Representative Jasmine Crockett, on all counts. The room exploded. Reporters shouted. Cameras flashed. Crockett's team hugged. Gaetz didn't move. He stared straight ahead, frozen, but it wasn't over. The jury still had to decide how much he would pay. The next morning, they returned with the number. $25 million, $15 million for damages. $10 million for punishment. When the judge read it aloud, a murmur ran through the crowd. Gaetz looked like the air had left his body. The judge spoke directly to him. Congressman Gaetz, you used your platform to spread lies. You laughed while doing it. You showed no remorse. This verdict is a reminder that words have consequences. Flashbulbs exploded as he left the courtroom, head down, no smile, no laugh. Outside, one reporter shouted, Congressman, any comment? He didn't answer. He kept walking toward the waiting car, shoulders slumped. The crowd shouting his name not in praise but in disbelief. That image would appear on every front page the next day. The once cocky politician walking away defeated. But even as the news spread across the nation, another storm was building, a storm that would not just end Matt Gaetz's career, but strip away everything else he still had left. Because the verdict was only the beginning. The real consequences were yet to come, and what happened in the months that followed would shock even his harshest critics. The morning after the verdict, the world woke up to a new reality. Every headline carried the same name, Matt Gaetz. Every TV screen showed the same image, the congressman walking out of court, head down, shoulders heavy, eyes empty. Commentators called it a political earthquake. Some said it was justice. Others said it was humiliation on a national scale. But no matter what side they were on, everyone agreed on one thing. Matt Gaetz had finally fallen. Inside his Florida home, Gaetz sat at his kitchen table surrounded by silence. His phone buzzed nonstop. Calls from reporters. Messages from party leaders. His lawyer begging him not to speak publicly. For once, the man who never stopped talking had nothing to say. He turned on the TV. There he was, his face replayed over and over. News anchors talking about his arrogance, his laughter, his downfall. Every word cut deep. Every image reminded him of what he had lost. Within 24 hours, the political fallout began. The House Ethics Committee announced they were launching a formal investigation into his conduct. A spokesperson said they were deeply concerned by the evidence revealed during the trial. Republican leaders, who once stood proudly beside him, began to distance themselves. One by one, they released statements calling his behavior unacceptable and beneath the dignity of Congress. In private, the message was much harsher. One senior Republican told a reporter off camera, "He brought this on himself. Nobody can save him now. Even his own allies avoided him. Invitations to events vanished. Donors withdrew support. His campaign manager quietly resigned." On social media, the reaction was brutal. For years, Gaetz had mocked others online. Now the same platforms were filled with jokes about him. Memes of his courtroom face went viral. Videos of his nervous stammer on the witness stand were edited into songs. He tried to fight back. He posted, "This was a witch hunt. A left-wing setup designed to silence me." But the replies came fast and cruel. "No, Matt," one comment said, "you silenced yourself." The judgment was devastating, $25 million. More than his entire net worth. His lawyers promised to appeal, but experts on every network said the same thing. There was no way out. The evidence was too strong. The verdict would stand. Weeks passed. His life grew smaller. He stopped appearing on television. His staff dwindled to 2 loyal aides. Donors refused his calls. The once buzzing office grew quiet. Phones ringing into empty air. Then came the financial collapse. Court orders demanded he begin paying the judgment. But when investigators reviewed his finances, they found something shocking. He didn't have the money. Not even close. Documents revealed he had been living far beyond his means. Luxury cars, private flights, expensive suits, and massive credit card debt. Within months, he was forced to declare bankruptcy. For the first time, his private finances became public. The papers showed he owed more than he owned. It was humiliation on top of humiliation. Cable news ran the story for days. Congressman Gaetz bankrupt after defamation verdict. It became the headline that finished his career, but the legal trouble didn't stop there. During the bankruptcy proceedings, investigators discovered inconsistencies in his trial testimony, statements that didn't match the evidence. The Justice Department began reviewing whether he had lied under oath. The same Justice Department he used to mock on television was now looking into him again. Only this time, he had no defenders left. As the investigation continued, the House Ethics Committee released their report. It was damning. They concluded that Gaetz had engaged in conduct unbecoming a member of Congress, that his attacks on Representative Crockett were intentional, malicious, and without basis. The committee couldn't force him to resign, but they stripped him of all committee assignments and recommended further sanctions. The report leaked to the press. Every detail, every quote, every piece of evidence. The public saw it all, and that was the final straw. Donors fled. Campaign funds dried up. Polls in his district plummeted. A local newspaper ran a front-page story titled, "The Fall of Matt Gaetz, From Power to Pariah." At his next public appearance, only a handful of supporters showed up. Gone were the cheering crowds. Gone was the laughter. People stood at a distance, watching quietly as he spoke, his voice shaky, his tone defensive. 6 months after the verdict, he called a press conference outside his Florida office. Cameras were ready. Reporters waited. He stepped up to the microphone looking thinner, older. He cleared his throat. After much reflection, he began. I've decided I will not seek re-election. There was a pause. Cameras clicked. He continued. This country is being destroyed by lies and media manipulation. I was a victim of that, but I will keep fighting for the truth in other ways. It was short, bitter, defensive. When he walked away, no one applauded. Reporters shouted questions, but he didn't look back. That same day, Jasmine Crockett released a statement. She didn't gloat. She didn't celebrate. She simply said, justice was served. This was never about revenge. It was about accountability. Her calm words made headlines again. They showed the world the contrast between a man who blamed everyone else and a woman who stood tall in dignity. The following year, Crockett's story became a symbol. She was invited to speak at the Democratic National Convention. She gave interviews about integrity and courage. Book. Publishers lined up with offers. She agreed to write her story, not as a political attack, but as a message about standing up to bullies. Her book became a bestseller. In it, she wrote, Matt Gaetz thought my race and gender made me an easy target. He laughed at the idea that I could fight back. But I had the truth, and I had the law. His laughter became his downfall. Her words touched millions. Across the country, people saw her as more than a politician. She became a symbol of strength, proof that dignity could defeat cruelty. Meanwhile, Gaetz's world kept shrinking. His friends disappeared. His political allies avoided his calls. He tried to rebuild his image with a podcast, but it failed miserably. The episodes got a few thousand views, mostly comments mocking him. Sponsors dropped out after a month. He tried to launch a speaking tour, but nobody bought tickets. Once a national figure, he had become a punchline. Even conservative networks that used to host him stopped taking his calls. One anchor said off camera, he's toxic. No one wants to be near him. 2 years later, his bankruptcy case still dragged on. He sold his house. He lost his cars. He moved into a small condo near Pensacola, working as a low-level consultant for a real estate firm. The man who once held press conferences on Capitol Hill now spent his days writing reports for local developers. When people recognized him in public, they whispered. Some took photos. He pretended not to notice, but the shame never left his face. Then, one evening, while scrolling through his phone, he saw something that made him stop. Headline, Senator Jasmine Crockett sworn in. He stared at it for a long time. The woman he once mocked had risen higher than ever. The woman he laughed at was now a U.S. senator. Turned off the phone and sat in silence. The sound of that old laughter played in his head. The same laugh that once made him powerful was now a memory of everything he lost. Months later, a documentary premiered at Sundance. Its title was simple, The Last Laugh. It told the story of how Jasmine Crockett stood up to Matt Gaetz and won. Jurors, reporters, and staffers shared their stories on camera. One juror said, "What convinced us most wasn't just the evidence. It was that laugh. You could hear the cruelty in it. You could hear the arrogance. It told us everything we needed to know about who he was." Another added, "Crockett showed courage. She showed that even the most powerful bullies can be defeated if you stand firm." The film became a hit. Viewers applauded. Critics praised its message. It was later shown in schools, law classes, and leadership seminars. The phrase pulling a Gaetz entered the national conversation. It meant destroying your own career through arrogance and cruelty. Political advisors started warning new candidates. Don't pull a Gaetz. In Congress, members became more careful about their words. The precedent set by Crockett's lawsuit changed. Everything. Defamation could no longer hide behind political speech. People in power had to think twice before spreading. Liz Crockett continued her work. Calm and steady as always. She introduced new laws protecting employees and public figures from targeted harassment. She met with young women entering politics. telling them, "Don't let fear stop you. The truth is stronger than hate." Audiences loved her. Her speeches filled auditoriums. Her story inspired a generation. Meanwhile, Gaetz faded into obscurity. Occasionally, someone would find him at a small restaurant or coffee shop. He would smile politely but avoid conversation. The once loud voice of Congress now spoke softly, almost as if afraid of being recognized. 5 years after the trial, a reporter found him for an interview. He agreed reluctantly. They met at a quiet cafe. The reporter asked, "Do you ever think about Jasmine Crockett?" He paused. "Every day," he said softly. "I thought I could laugh off anything. I thought being loud made me strong. But it didn't. It made me blind." He looked down. "That laugh cost me everything." The interview went viral, not because people felt sorry for him, but because it showed the final transformation of a man who once thought he was untouchable. Crockett never responded publicly to the interview. When asked about him in another event, she simply said, "I wish him peace. I've already forgiven him." But forgiveness doesn't erase accountability. Her answer drew applause from the crowd. It was the perfect summary of her journey: strength with grace, victory without cruelty. Years later, law students still studied Crockett v. Gaetz as a landmark case. Professors called it a turning point for truth and accountability in public life. Legal textbooks described it as the moment America remembered that words have power. And in history books, one image remained: Matt Gaetz leaving that courthouse. No grin, no laugh, just silence. Because in the end, the man who built his career on laughter lost everything because of it. And the woman he mocked built a legacy that would last forever. So remember this story, not just as politics, but as a lesson. Power can protect lies for a while, but truth always outlasts arrogance. And when the final judgment comes, the laugh that once mocked others becomes the sound of your own downfall. In the end, Matt Gaetz learned the hard way that power means nothing without respect, and laughter means nothing without truth. He thought his voice could never be silenced, but it was his own arrogance that did it, and Jasmine Crockett. She showed the world that strength doesn't always shout. Sometimes it stands tall, speaks calmly, and lets justice do the talking. Her victory wasn't just hers. It was a message to every person who's ever been mocked, doubted, or disrespected. You don't have to match cruelty with cruelty. You fight it with truth. You fight it with courage. And in the end, truth always wins. If this story inspired you, don't forget to click the like button. It helps more people find stories like this one. And if you believe that justice and truth still matter, subscribe to our channel right now. We share powerful stories every week, stories of courage, accountability, and people who stood up when it mattered most. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss when the next story drops. Because here, we don't just tell stories, we remind the world that integrity still wins.